Hi, I'm Firas, and welcome back to BrandBucket Academy. In this episode, we're covering one of the most important and most challenging steps in the naming journey: how to evaluate and confidently choose the right name for your business. Margot Bushnaq, founder and CEO of BrandBucket, shares how to remove the emotional roadblocks, gather meaningful feedback, and make a decision that sets you and your brand up for long-term success. If you're stuck in analysis paralysis, this session will help you break through and move forward. Let's dive in. Hello again.
I'm excited to even hear what we're talking about. I have no idea.
You have no idea.
No.
All right. Well, we're going to be talking about evaluating your business name options.
Okay.
So we'll start with knowing when you're close. How can someone tell when they're getting close to the right name?
It's kind of a magical moment where you feel it in your gut, like you get that tingle that something about this just won't let me forget it, and you keep coming back around to it. And then from there, you can actually craft a story around it. And then is when you know that you're onto something.
What are some signs that a name is promising, even if it's not perfect?
It's the emotional response that it evokes.
Yeah.
So if you say a name and it just lies there and it's just very bland, no kind of visceral emotional response to it at all, then it's maybe not the right name. But if something, and you don't even have to understand why, your gut is a very powerful brain that doesn't get understood very often. But if something about it is triggering something in you, then you're onto something.
How do you recommend narrowing down a long list of options?
So these are options that you've all vetted as possible names. Yep. The narrowing down needs to happen with the customer in mind. At that point, you need to take yourself out of it. You need to take the list you've built all has you. It's all, pieces of you in there. There's a reason that it was put on the list, either you or your team around you. And so pieces of your ego are in there, and you need to strip away the ego and then try to look at it from the other side of the window and just say, okay, if I were walking by and I see this, what kind of reaction do I have? And it doesn't necessarily, when your brand doesn't exactly state what you do, so if your brand is Tide, people wouldn't necessarily know that you're detergent. But if people do know you're detergent and they walk by you in the aisle, does that name, make them stop, even for a split second?
Makes perfect sense. Yeah. What's the best way to test name options with potential customers or peers?
You don't want to leave the feedback door wide open, because everyone's going to have an opinion, and usually it's a strong opinion and it might not be what you're looking for. But you should ask very specific questions. So with a subset of people, you can test spelling. You can test pronunciation with a different set. You can ask a third set, how does this make you feel? Or what do you think of when you hear this? But you can't just go out and say, I'm thinking of naming my company this. What do you think? Because that feedback's not going to be helpful.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, is kind of focus your questions about each name or each segment of names and ask it to different audiences. So this way you're not getting too many feedback, like too much noise into the feedback loop, if you will.
Exactly. You're trying to get to specific answers. And so spelling and pronunciation being as important as they are, you can't ask the same person both, because in order to ask them how to spell it, they need to hear it. And once they've heard it, you can't
ask them to pronounce it.
So that's two different groups of people. And then the kind of emotion it evokes could be those two people. You could take that same group and just say, okay, when you hear that word, what other words do you think of? Or what do you feel?
Mm-hmm.
And then that feedback is all very important. And then really you're kind of trying to get at stepping around the fact that you're naming your company this. If the people don't know what you do, that's even better. Because if you're trying to, if you're creating the brand Sephora and you don't tell them that you're a beauty business, and you just say, what do you think of, or how do you feel when you hear that name? They're like, oh, I think of, something really peaceful. I think of flowers. I think of this. Then that is like amazing feedback. That ticks all the buckets of kind of what you're going for right there.
Yeah. How do you separate useful feedback from noise or personal bias?
By doing exactly that, by asking very directed, specific questions.
Yeah, just silo the feedback process. Should people test names publicly or keep it private until they're sure?
That's a very tricky one. Focus groups are great at telling you what does not work, but they're really inaccurate at telling you what does work. So usually when you're testing a name, you're not testing the story behind the name, because the story then has to reveal what you do. But if you are just trying to get really pure feedback and not, driven by any one vocal person's previous experience, you need to just take it for what it is. Like if you do decide to test it if you have a good kind of customer advisory board, if you're an existing company and you're launching a new product and there's a core group of customers that you trust, just try to filter out anything positive and just look at just the negative. For the people that didn't like it, why? And maybe their why was because it triggered an emotional reaction, and that's a good thing anyway.
Here's the next question. When should domain availability or trademark potential factor into your decision?
Trademark is much more important. You can not continue with that name if it's infringing on a trademark in your particular pocket of business, in your sector. So that's a no-go. If you run into a trademark problem, you need to start over, start from scratch. Domain availability is really just a matter of how big of a company you are or plan to be and how your customers find you. If you are a strictly online software planning to be global business, then you need to have the most concise version of your name. You cannot be adding app or Inc. or consultancy or anything after the fact, because the potential confusion is so high. But if you are a small local business that, that your website is just kind of an online version of your business card, most of your customers don't even know you have a website, most of them don't care, then really your domain name could be anything. A lot of these people don't even start out with a domain name, they just have a version of their company name at gmail.com. And then they eventually take that, and then when they start start taking steps to be a little more professional, then they'll get a domain name, but it could be really long. It could be 3-4 words. It could not be on a .com, because .com indicates that you are a commerce business on the web. But if you are just a service business, you could be on a something else, like one of these thousands of other options that there are, because your customers aren't emailing you and they're not seeking you out on the web. And SEO is not necessarily important for you. But the closer you get to needing the web to exist as a business, then the more important it is that your name is a .com, most likely, or at least an extension that your nearby competitors are using, or that your customers understand and know. So if you are in gaming, you can be a .gg. If you are in software, .io is actually kind of accepted and understood by the customers. But as you get bigger, your name needs to get shorter. The potential for confusion is going to be very high.
Yeah. Making the final choice. What mindset should someone have when they're making the final decision on a name?
I think the mindset should be, there's no such thing as the perfect name. If you get stuck on perfection, you will never get past the naming phase and you won't build. You need to find a name that resonates with you, that makes sense for your business, that customers understand and can spell and can, remember, where you can get a logical domain name with it. You can trademark it. And at the end of the day, that's all you need, because that's just the name, and the brand comes later when you craft the story and just start building a customer base and having it be something that they can't live without.
Yeah. So what you're saying, and what I hear you saying, is that no brand is perfect from the beginning. Mm-mm. And you need to accept that anything you come up with at that initial phase, calling it the final decision, is going to have some level of imperfection, but you'll be able to build on top of that, or masquerade that, or cure that by building your brand and making it the perfect match to what you actually provide as a service.
Yep.
How important is it to trust your instincts in the final stages? I guess this is a question of being analytical and strategic versus emotional and instinctual.
Instinct goes a long way. And for me, the logical brain can sometimes take over, and that can almost hinder memorability of the brand. But if you pay attention to, if you take a beat and just forget about the naming for a couple of days, and then you come back to it, the first few names that you remember from what you were discussing and when you were doing your narrowing down, those are the most memorable ones, even if they're not the most logical ones. And memorability is the most important factor for customers to be able to find you again, to be able to tell their friends about you, to be able to, to actually kind of create a connection with you.
Yep. Excellent. What should someone do if they're torn between two strong name options? Flip a coin?
Get them both.
Yeah.
I'm serious. Sometimes when you feel really strongly about two, you just go, and something somewhere not too far down the line will make the decision for you.
So get both of them, start building, and before you ship and get your product out there, before you release your final product, decide on what's the final brand.
Yeah, subconsciously it'll come out. You'll put one of them before the other on your Dropbox.
Okay, so
When
you're
you're
saying along the
communicating
way.
via email with your team, they will tend towards one over the other. And it's those kind of unwritten, unconscious signals that will identify the better option. But a good name is an asset. So hold it. Hold
Yeah.
it for the next project or sell it. The whole reason companies like BrandBucket exist is because people got 5 options for a company and they're selling the other 4.
Yeah. Moving forward with confidence, now that you've made a decision, what's one last check you'd recommend before officially choosing a name?
So you've gone through all of your trademark checks.
Everything.
You can spell it, you can pronounce it. It doesn't mean anything weird in a foreign language.
Yep.
One last check, and you've gotten the domain name for it.
Yep.
I would say if you can tell your parents about it proudly,
Yeah.
with confidence.
I guess if you haven't gotten the domain name, you would have to get the domain name.
Yeah.
If it's not the .com, try to get the .com and try to get it before it gets too expensive.
Yeah. Domain name availability is a good indicator sometimes of there's too many people using your name. If it's available and for sale, that's great. That's a great option right there. If it's available and being used, that's a red flag. You need to make sure that you're not treading in their business. But if you've got everything, I mean, that's all the confidence you need. You don't, if you've ticked all the boxes, that's kind of rare, actually.
Yeah.
Most people are leaving one unchecked. Like you said, no name is perfect, but there's an imperfection you can live with. It just can't be an imperfection that can get you in trouble in the future with trademarks or with people not being able to find you because they can't spell it.
Yeah. What's your advice for someone who's worried about choosing the wrong name?
I think the only time you would choose a wrong name is if you're following your head more than your gut. And so if you are just so insistent that, this needs to be the name, and logically it's because of these search terms, it ranks high for this search term and this and this and this, then, but your gut says, it's not cool, it doesn't really reflect who I am, or it's too boring, or it's too long. If your gut saying all those things continues to be overridden by the logical side of you, then that's when you're in danger of finding the wrong name.
Yeah. And what's the most important thing to focus on once you've made your decision? Don't look back.
Don't look back. By that point, you've decided your why. At that point, you've kind of crafted the story of your name. And just go.
Stay strong.
Stay strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool.
Then the first thing you should do, actually, which is what everyone should do once you have your domain name, you should put up a coming soon page with your mission. And that way, every time you go look at it, or every time you send someone to it, you're reminded of why you're doing what you're doing.
The why.
Yep.
And the brand attached to it. And start building that attachment at an early stage. If you're ready to make that final decision, don't let naming be the thing that holds your business back. Visit brandbucket.com to explore a curated marketplace of brandable business names and find the one that checks all the boxes for you. Remember, great brands aren't just built on ideas. They're built on names that people remember and connect with. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.